She brought her 3 kids from previous relationships to move into my studio apartment without warning. When I said there wasn't space, she said, "Kids adapt, stop being selfish." I didn't kick anyone out, just found a new place and moved overnight. Now she's asking mutual friends for my address. I've known Jessica for about a year now. We met at a friend's barbecue last summer and hit it off immediately. Both of us were in our late 30s, I'm 38 and she's 36, and we connected over similar tastes in music, movies, and food. We started dating about 8 months ago, and things were pretty good at first. She was fun, attractive, and seemed to have her life together. She had mentioned she had kids from previous relationships, but they lived with their fathers most of the time, and she'd get them on occasional weekends. In the time we dated, I only met them twice during short visits. 3 boys aged 12, 8, and 6. It's worth mentioning that according to Jessica, the custody arrangement was that the kids primarily lived with their fathers during the school year and spent summers with her, plus occasional weekends throughout the year. This arrangement had been in place for years and seemed to work for everyone involved. About 3 months into our relationship, Jessica started hinting that her lease was ending soon. I didn't think much of it at first. She'd mentioned places she was looking at, areas of town she was considering, and asked my opinion on a few listings. Normal stuff. Then the hints became more direct. "Wouldn't it be nice if we saw each other every day? I've always wanted to live in this part of town. Rent is getting so expensive these days, it makes sense to combine resources." I'll admit I was hesitant. I live in a studio apartment. It's not tiny, but it's definitely designed for 1 person. Maybe 2 if you're really comfortable with each other. 450 square feet total. 1 main room that serves as living room, bedroom, and dining area, plus a separate bathroom and a small kitchenette. I've lived here for 5 years and it suits me fine. The rent is reasonable, it's close to my job, and I don't need much space. I told Jessica straight up that while I enjoyed our relationship, my place was too small for 2 adults to live comfortably. I suggested we could start looking at 2-bedroom places together if that's what she wanted, though I'd need a few months to prepare financially for a move. She seemed to understand, and the subject dropped for a while. Our relationship continued smoothly. We'd spend weekends together, usually at her place since it was bigger, a 2-bedroom apartment. Sometimes we'd stay at mine when her kids were with their dads. Last month, Jessica called me on a Thursday evening sounding stressed. "Hey, I need to talk to you about something important," she said. "What's up?" I asked. "My landlord sold the building, and the new owners are terminating all leases. I have to be out by the end of the month." That was concerning, as it was already the 18th. Less than 2 weeks to find a new place. "That's rough. Have you started looking?" I asked. "I have, but everything's either too expensive or they want a huge deposit I can't afford right now." I could sense where this was heading, but waited for her to say it. "I was thinking maybe I could stay with you for a bit, just until I find a new place." I hesitated. "Jessica, you know my place is tiny. It's barely enough for 1 person." "I know, but it would just be temporary. A month, 2 at most." I was conflicted, but decided I could make it work temporarily. "Okay, but we'll need to be actively looking for somewhere else right away." "Thank you," she said, sounding relieved. "You're the best." We agreed she'd move in that weekend. I spent Friday clearing out some closet and drawer space and rearranging things to make room for her belongings. It would be cramped, but doable for a short time. Saturday morning, I was expecting Jessica to arrive around 10 a.m. At 9:45, I heard a car pull up outside. Looking out the window, I saw her getting out of an SUV I didn't recognize. Then the back doors opened, and out came her 3 kids. My stomach dropped. Behind them was a pickup truck stacked with furniture. A man I'd never seen before was in the driver's seat. I went outside immediately. "Jessica, what's going on?" I asked, trying to keep my voice level since the kids were right there. "We're moving in," she said cheerfully, like this was the plan all along. "Boys, say hi to David." The boys mumbled various greetings while eyeing my apartment building. "Can I talk to you for a second?" I pulled her aside while the kids started unloading backpacks from the SUV. "You didn't mention the kids would be coming too." "Oh," she said, looking surprised. "I thought that was obvious. Where else would they go?" Jessica, I have a studio apartment. There's barely room for the two of us, let alone 3 more people. She waved dismissively. Kids adapt. They can share the floor space with sleeping bags for now. I was stunned. This isn't about adapting. There's literally not enough physical space. Where would everyone sleep? Where would they do homework? Where would anyone have privacy? We'll figure it out, she said. Stop being selfish. They're just kids. That's when I noticed the pickup truck driver was unloading what looked like a bed frame. What's all that? I asked, pointing at the truck. Just some essentials. My bedroom set, the boys' dressers, the TV stand, some kitchen stuff. I couldn't believe what I was hearing. Jessica, none of that will fit in my apartment. Did you even look at the space? We'll make it work, she insisted. Some of it can go in storage if needed. I don't have storage. My apartment doesn't even have a garage or basement. The boys were now wandering around the small patch of lawn in front of my building, looking bored and confused. Who's that guy? I nodded toward the truck. Oh, that's my brother Mike. He's helping with the move. Her brother looked over at us and gave a short wave. I took a deep breath. Jessica, we need to be realistic here. My studio apartment is 450 square feet. That's 1 room plus a bathroom. There's no way 5 people and all this furniture will fit. Well, what do you expect me to do? Her voice rose slightly. We have nowhere else to go. What about your ex-husbands? The kids' fathers? Can't they stay with them while you figure something out? Her expression darkened. That's not an option. Things are complicated with them right now. This was the first I'd heard of any complications. According to her, the arrangements with her exes had always been amicable. Look, I said, trying to be reasonable, I'm happy to help you find a new place, even help with the deposit if needed, but all 5 of us cannot live in my studio. It's not possible. I can't believe you're doing this to me, she hissed, keeping her voice low enough that the kids couldn't hear. To us, I thought you cared about me. I do care about you, but this isn't about feelings. It's about physical space and being practical. Kids adapt, she repeated firmly. Stop being selfish, this is only temporary. I realized this conversation wasn't going anywhere productive. Jessica had clearly made up her mind and expected me to just go along with it. Give me a minute, I said, walking back to my apartment. I stood in the middle of my small studio and looked around. My bed took up 1 corner. A small 2-seater couch and coffee table occupied another. My desk with my computer was against one wall. A small dining table with 2 chairs sat near the kitchenette. Every inch of space was already in use. There was no way to fit 3 more people and all their belongings. It wasn't about being unwilling, it was physically impossible. I went back outside where Jessica was now directing her brother about where to put some boxes. Jessica, this won't work. There's not enough space for everyone. So what are you saying? She demanded. You're gonna leave us homeless? Of course not. Let's find a hotel for tonight, my treat, and tomorrow we can start looking for a place that will actually fit everyone. A hotel? She scoffed. With 3 kids? That's no way to live. It's just for a few days while we figure something out, I reasoned. She crossed her arms. No, we're moving in here like we planned. We never planned for 5 people, I reminded her. You said it would be just you, temporarily. Well, circumstances changed, she snapped. The kids' fathers both bailed on taking them this month. What was I supposed to do? This was news to me. When did this happen? Last week, she admitted. But I didn't want to worry you with it. So she'd known all along the kids would be coming but chose not to tell me. This wasn't adding up. And this just happened to coincide with summer break starting when the kids would be with you anyway? I asked, remembering her previous explanation of the custody arrangement. She looked flustered for a moment. Well, yes. But they weren't supposed to come until next week. Everything got moved up because of my housing situation. I still felt like I was missing pieces of the puzzle. But the immediate issue was the physical impossibility of fitting 5 people into my tiny apartment. Jessica, I'm sorry about your situation, but my apartment simply cannot accommodate 5 people. That's just reality. Fine, she said coldly. Boys, start bringing your things in. David will help you get settled. I couldn't believe she was ignoring everything I'd said. Her brother Mike approached us. Where do you want the bed frame? Before I could answer, Jessica said, just start bringing everything up. We'll arrange it once it's all inside. I realized I needed to be more direct. No, stop. Nothing else is coming into the apartment. There's no room. Jessica glared at me. So you're kicking us out? Leaving my children homeless? I'm not kicking anyone out because you haven't moved in yet, I said firmly. And I'm offering to pay for temporary accommodation while we find a suitable place. That's the same thing, she shouted, causing her kids to look over nervously. You promised we could stay here. I promised you could stay here temporarily. Just you, not 5 people in an apartment's worth of furniture. Her brother looked uncomfortable. Maybe I should come back later? No, Mike, stay, Jessica insisted. David is just being difficult. He'll come around. That's when I knew this situation had gone too far. Jessica wasn't listening to reason, and now she was trying to force the issue by putting me on the spot in front of her kids and brother. I'm going inside, I said calmly. Nothing is being moved into my apartment today. I'm happy to discuss alternatives, but this plan won't work. I went back inside and closed the door. Through the window, I could see Jessica talking animatedly to her brother while gesturing toward my apartment. The kids sat on the curb looking miserable. After about 20 minutes, there was a knock at my door. It was Jessica, alone. Can we talk? She asked, her tone softer now. I let her in. She looked around my studio apartment with new eyes, seemingly finally registering how small it really was. Okay, she sighed. I see what you mean about the space. Thank you, I said, relieved she was being reasonable. But we still have nowhere to go, she continued. Could we just stay here tonight? Just tonight. The boys can sleep on the floor and we'll figure something out tomorrow. I was wary after how she'd tried to steamroll me earlier, but one night seemed manageable. Just tonight, I agreed. And just the essentials. No furniture. Thank you, she said, giving me a quick hug before heading back outside. I watched as she and Mike unloaded just a few suitcases and backpacks from the vehicles. The furniture remained in the truck. The boys brought in sleeping bags and pillows, looking around my small apartment with undisguised disappointment. That night was chaotic. 3 kids in a studio apartment left no personal space for anyone. They were constantly bumping into each other, arguing over the bathroom, complaining about being bored with no TV in their own room. Jessica spent most of the evening on her phone, ignoring both me and the chaos around us. At one point, I overheard the oldest boy on the phone saying, "Yeah, we moved into David's place today. Mom says we're staying here now." That set off alarm bells. This was supposed to be for one night only. When the kids finally fell asleep on the floor, I tried to talk to Jessica. "We need to find a proper place tomorrow," I whispered. "This clearly isn't working." "It's fine," she whispered back, not looking up from her phone. "They'll get used to it." "Jessica, this isn't about getting used to it. There's literally not enough space." "Stop being so selfish," she hissed. "My kids need a roof over their heads. If you really cared about me, you'd make this work." I realized then that Jessica had no intention of this being temporary. In her mind, they had moved in permanently. And I was just being difficult by pointing out the obvious space issues. I barely slept that night, partly because of the cramped conditions, but mostly because I was trying to figure out what to do. By morning, I had a plan. While Jessica took the kids out for breakfast, my treat, I gave her $50. I called my boss and asked for an emergency personal day, which he granted. Then I called a friend who owned a 3-bedroom house and was often traveling for work. He was currently away for a month and agreed to let me stay at his place while he was gone, giving me enough time to find a new apartment. Next, I called a local moving company and paid for emergency same-day service. Expensive, but worth it. I packed my essential belongings, clothes, important documents, electronics, and personal items into suitcases and boxes. The movers arrived at 11 a.m. and were done by noon. I left a note for Jessica on the kitchen counter. "Jessica, it's clear we have different expectations about our living situation. My studio apartment cannot accommodate 5 people, regardless of how much we try to adapt. I've moved out temporarily to give you and your kids space while you find suitable housing. I've spoken with my landlord and paid rent through the end of next month, so you have 30 days to find a new place. He's aware of the situation and has agreed to this temporary arrangement. I've left my spare key on the counter, and the landlord has a copy if needed. I've also left $500 to help with your deposit on a new apartment. Please don't contact me directly. If you need to communicate, please do so through Mike or our mutual friends. David. I left the $500 in cash and my spare key next to the note, then went to speak with my landlord. I explained the situation honestly, that my girlfriend and her 3 children had nowhere to go after an unexpected eviction from their previous place. I showed him pictures of the cramped conditions and explained this was a temporary solution until Jessica could find appropriate housing for her family. This violates the occupancy limits in your lease, he pointed out, understandably concerned. I know, I acknowledged. That's why I'm moving out today and wanted to speak with you directly. I've paid through the end of next month, and I'm willing to remain legally responsible for the apartment. I just need your permission for Jessica and her kids to stay there temporarily until they find something suitable. After some discussion and my offer to pay an additional security deposit, he reluctantly agreed, but made it clear that everyone needed to be out by the end of the next month, when my lease officially ended. By 1 p.m., I was settled in at my friend's house. I changed my phone number that afternoon, leaving my new contact information only with close friends I trusted not to share it with Jessica. I knew she would be calling non-stop once she returned to find me gone. When I turned my phone back on the next day, I had 27 missed calls from Jessica, 13 voicemails, and 42 text messages, ranging from confused to angry to pleading. I didn't respond to any of them. Instead, I sent a message to our closest mutual friends explaining what had happened. I wanted to get ahead of whatever story Jessica might tell. I explained how she had attempted to move herself, 3 children, and a truck full of furniture into my 450-square-foot studio apartment without prior discussion, and how, when I pointed out this was physically impossible, she accused me of being selfish and insisted kids adapt. Over the next few days, I learned from these friends that Jessica was indeed telling everyone I had abandoned her and her children and left them homeless. Most of our friends understood once they heard both sides and saw pictures of my studio apartment. A few even admitted Jessica had tried to get my new address and phone number from them, which they refused to share. 2 weeks later, I heard from a mutual friend that Jessica had found a 3-bedroom apartment. Apparently, her brother Mike had co-signed the lease since her credit wasn't great. The kids were now properly settled with their own rooms. I never spoke to Jessica directly again, though I occasionally hear updates through our social circle. She's still bitter about how things ended and maintains that I abandoned her in her time of need. But those who know the full story understand I did what I had to do in an impossible situation. As for me, I ended up finding a nice 1-bedroom apartment in a different part of town. It's a bit more expensive than my old studio, but having a separate bedroom feels like a luxury after what happened. I sometimes wonder if I could have handled things differently, but whenever I start second-guessing myself, I remember Jessica's words. Kids adapt. Stop being selfish. If she'd been honest from the beginning about her plans, we could have found a solution that worked for everyone. Instead, she tried to force a situation that was physically impossible and emotionally manipulative. The lesson I learned? When someone shows you who they are, believe them the first time. And always make sure you're on the same page about major life decisions before making promises you can't keep. Update: 3 months later. It's been 3 months since the apartment incident with Jessica, and I thought I'd share an update for those who've been following along. First, life has been peaceful. My new 1-bedroom apartment suits me perfectly, and I've been enjoying the extra space and distance from the drama. After staying at my friend's place for about 3 weeks, I found this apartment and signed a proper lease. About a month after I moved out, Jessica somehow got my new phone number, despite me changing it and only giving it to trusted friends, and called from an unknown number. I answered without thinking. "David, we need to talk." She started immediately. "I don't think we have anything to discuss," I replied. "You left us with nothing. Do you know how hard it's been?" I had to laugh at that. "Jessica, I left you with a paid-up apartment for a month and $500 cash. That barely covered anything, and now I had to get a place that's way more expensive. You needed a bigger place anyway. A studio was never going to work for 5 people. You promised. I promised you could stay temporarily. Just you, not your 3 kids and a truck full of furniture with no warning. She was silent for a moment, then changed tactics. The boys miss you, she said softly. This was manipulative considering I'd only met her kids twice before the moving day disaster. Jessica, I'm not doing this. I wish you and your kids well, but we're done. You're going to regret this, she said, her voice hardening. I've told everyone what you did. Feel free to tell the truth. I have nothing to hide. I hung up and blocked the number. A week later, I discovered she'd been reaching out to mutual friends again, this time with a different story. According to her, we had been planning to move in together for months, and I had specifically promised to help raise her kids. She claimed I'd backed out at the last minute when I realized how much work kids are. Fortunately, our mutual friends knew this was complete fiction. One of them, Sarah, even confronted Jessica about her lies, reminding her that she'd told everyone just months earlier that she was looking for her own place and hadn't mentioned any plans to move in with me. Jessica apparently broke down and admitted she'd been desperate. Her previous landlord had actually evicted her for non-payment of rent, not because the building was sold. She'd been banking on moving in with me as a solution to her financial problems and hadn't bothered to make any backup plans. She also revealed something I hadn't known. The custody arrangement she'd described to me had been changed months ago. The fathers had both filed for and received primary custody year-round due to Jessica's unstable housing situation, which is why the kids live with their dads most of the time. Story had been technically true, but not in the way she'd led me to believe. She was supposed to have them only for supervised visits, but had convinced the fathers to let her have them for the summer if she could prove she had stable housing. Last week, I ran into Mike, Jessica's brother, at a local store. I was wary at first, but he actually apologized for his part in the moving day fiasco. I had no idea she hadn't cleared it with you, he said. She told me you two had been planning this for weeks and were excited to have the kids move in. He explained that Jessica had a pattern of doing this, latching onto boyfriends as financial saviors when things got tough. Apparently, I wasn't the first guy she'd tried to move in with on short notice. She's not a bad person, Mike said. Just desperate and not great at handling responsibilities. I appreciated his honesty, but maintained my distance. The most vindicating moment came when Jessica apparently tried the same tactic with her new boyfriend last month. According to Sarah, Jessica had been dating this guy for only 6 weeks when she suggested moving in together. When he hesitated, she showed up at his house with all her and her kids' belongings, claiming an emergency eviction. Unlike me, he called her bluff immediately and refused to let anyone inside. The relationship ended on the spot. I feel sorry for her kids caught in the middle of their mother's chaos, but I'm grateful I got out when I did, before things got even more complicated. So that's where things stand. Jessica has stopped trying to contact me or spread stories about me. Our mutual friends have largely taken my side after seeing the pattern of behavior. And I've learned a valuable lesson about establishing clear boundaries and trusting my instincts. Sometimes the best revenge isn't about getting back at someone. It's about protecting yourself and moving forward with your life.